Be here today. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. I mean, I can't tell you how gratified I am for the community and networking that we're building here and the collaboration and support. And it's all because of you, the audience. People come here every day and share and receive. It's starting to come back to people now. They're starting to learn that by being a trusted, thoughtful, respectful, supportive individual, that separates them from the crowd. So, with that said, today's word is belonging. Chat's open. We depend on you for direction. Kelly is having a little technical difficulty. I'm sure she'll join in time. In the meantime, very honored to have Leslie Flowers here again. You know Leslie. Leslie continues to contribute and help us grow here. So, with that said, waiting for the audience. In the meantime, Leslie, say a little bit about whatever you want to say, and then touch on belonging. Kinga's here. First
Hey, Kinga.
comment is on the way. Kinga should win something for being first to comment. We'll have to figure out what that is. Leslie, take it away before the avalanche of comments show up.
Okay, great. So, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. The sun is shining. I'm doing something to help expand your voice, and it really is a takeoff. Donald was the one who actually ignited this idea in me. So, creatively, I got to thinking a couple of days ago, or actually, it was before this week, that I have a hard time. Let me see what she said. Kelly said, no, she didn't say anything. Okay. Just double checking on Kelly. That I have a hard time keeping up with the weekly shows that are live stream every week and audio. So I thought, oh, what if I posted every Monday all of the lives and audios and tagged everybody? Then that my connections will see it, and then your connections will see it. So it's a way to get all of our weekly lives that were inspired by what Donald is doing to expand our network and bring more people in. And so, really, that's belonging in a way, right? It is belonging to a larger, trusted network. So, what do you think about that, Donald? How are you today?
Just like any words, definitions start at what would be conventional wisdom or traditional thought. But again, with context, with application, with delivery, the word starts changing in how it's received and perceived. So, with that said, belonging, I think, lends itself to fitting, right? You can belong to a group, you can belong to your home and fit into it, you can belong to your family, again, fit into it. So, it's where is your best fit and
Mm,
who can support that fit for you,
I love that. I
right?
love
Round
that.
pegs and square, round pegs and square holes don't lend itself to less than friction. So with the buffet of people here, and let me just run through the names because it's
Please.
important.
Yeah.
Uh, Kinga's here. Thank you so much. Uh, Great person, great profile. I mean, obviously a quality connection. Ashif is here every day lately, always brings positivity and good wishes to everybody. That really builds the spirit and the energy when you're starting with salutations and gratitude. It's the third. Am I the third to respond? Yeah, I think there's something for bronze today, but not quite sure what it is. Clever Dennis. See, great to have some fun, put a laugh on everybody's face. Yes, I have a hard time keeping up, and I love all you people. Thank you. Well, love is always the answer. Every word that we have should ultimately point to love, right? And belonging gives you some level of security, safety when you belong, when
Mhm.
you feel protected, when you're surrounded by people who know have your back and you have theirs. How rare is that? And to do it voluntarily, not by family forcing or polite friends. Paul's here. Hello, grateful to be here. Learn from you both today. Talk about a wealth of knowledge today. Well, Paul's always stirring the pot. He's always adding stuff to something, sending people referrals. I mean, he is so giving and,
Yes.
and so supportive. And that's what makes for belonging, is examples of what people do that they're hoping other people will learn from, adopt, and do for others. Oh, Jamie's here. Jamie's just a lovely individual. Must be, here we go. Dennis, stronger lives are here is even better than weaker lives. Dean was on yesterday. Fabulous performance. If you didn't see him yesterday, go back to the video and see Dean. Great guy, even greater story. Thank you, Dean. Cindy's here. Asif. Another Asif. Thank you. So it looks like we caught up.
Mhm.
And with that said, back to belonging and back to what I just had mentioned. What's your new thoughts?
Well, I was thinking about the belonging in this community and looking at the characteristics. So, really, what is it that, and this is just coming to me now because I selected this word because I don't know a lot about it, right? It's a big subject on the internet now. A lot of my friends are really getting into belonging in the workplace. And I decided that the best way not to teach is to come up with a subject I didn't know much about. Right. So I don't take over and start teaching you stuff. And we really do have a conversation. The characteristics in this group that make me feel comfortable, Don, there's a few things that I noticed, and they're now my expectations, right, to belong because it's been working for some time. Hi, everybody. So glad you're here. I see so many wonderful people. So, one of the characteristics is you'll notice that there's no smart remarks. There's some light humor, but in general, everybody is lifting everybody up. And I'm not going beyond two because I know what you'll do to me if I do more than 2 points.
For sure.
So, because Don constitutes 3 or more teachings. So my job, I am told I'm not allowed to teach. So you'll have to extract whatever you can. Okay, so one of them is that everybody is respectful and fair with each other. I don't know if you've ever been on Facebook. I've been gone for 2.5 years or other platforms, but that is not always so. So that's one thing that makes me comfortable to be a little vulnerable and share my stories. The other thing that I really like is that people have not started promoting their stuff in the comments. And Don, you've been a master at making sure. I had a session on Friday where someone did that. The only thing about that is when you go into a new group, lurk a little and see what the protocol is because this person, and it's fine, but they dropped all their information in the comments. But if they waited 30 seconds, they would have seen no one else did it. So those are two things. One, people are respectful. They're always looking for the greatness in others. And the other one is that this is really a love zone. It's a no promo zone. How's that for 2?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it was in the range. So, I want to celebrate the new people, and now we've got some
Please.
comments.
Yeah.
Olu's here. Olu's just great. Been actually talking with him a couple times this week and talking about some creative opportunities. Linda's here. Linda's, hello. My community hope more learn of belonging, cause happy for new people, and recognize zone becoming community, helping us all feel comfortable. So right, Linda. Paul says, I'm not sure if it was Brene Brown or Maya Angelou that said true belonging means you belong everywhere and nowhere. Thrive with your tribe and have the courage to stand alone in your truth. So many wise authors, speakers have come to the same conclusions
Mm-hmm.
that you have to make the effort to belong. And
Yes.
and so many people are qualifying people who would belong with them, and it works the other way. At the same time, if your key doesn't work, that tells you go to another lock. So that's again with the fit, with the belonging. Want to go back?
I want you to go back because this is a truth bomb here. Paul is, if you watch Paul's comments, there's hidden stuff inside. If you know stuff, he knows stuff, and it will bring things up for you. So what I hear in this is the aspiration to be authentically yourself, to be able to be who you are wherever you go. So it doesn't, if you belong everywhere and nowhere, it means you're the same everywhere. So Paul, you're really onto something. Don't you think so, Don?
Yeah, and what I'm gathering from all of this is that now that everybody is sharing more, I see the comments getting bigger and juicier,
Mm-hmm.
meatier, where you can really bite into them and there's essence to it and there's value to it.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what is stopping other people who now know it's safe, who now know how many people are getting benefit from sharing and learning together, to jump into the party in a sense and support other people? I mean, how much proof, how much trust, how much evidence does someone need to say this is real, this could be valuable, and I can bring value?
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Answer that. I think you'll enjoy this. And this just popped into my mind. This is, the universe gave me this as you were speaking. Years ago, when my kids were little, we all went back to San Francisco and we took the tour of Alcatraz. And by the way, if you've never done that, it is so fun and cold. So dress warmly. And we took the audio tour of Alcatraz. Now we're talking about several hundred people all gathering in one room, and everybody has on a headset and what looks like an old radio. Okay. Now, we all started at the same time with our radios or our tapes, and we all began to move into the facility at the same time. And yet, over the next 90 minutes, you guys and Don, no one bumped into anybody else. This relates to your point. Not everybody is ready, and there are different states of readiness. So, like me, Paul, and those who have already begun their weekly lives, we jumped right in. There are people that are in the process moving toward that. And then there are people that will take longer. So I think that is what's happening. It isn't that they don't want to. Maybe they're in the process of building the confidence, thinking about it more, talking about it, and each person needs different things. That's my thought on this.
Well, you know what I'm thinking to what you're thinking is I really want to see more people get into action with each other, for themselves, for others. And that's why I'm considering having a working weekly collaboration Zoom group,
Mhm.
where now everybody's got an equal seat at the table, and now everybody can share what they're learning, but more importantly, what they'd like to do.
Mm.
And that would either lend somebody say, hey, I'll partner up with you, or I might know somebody, or here's some thoughts you may want to have, because it's really getting into action. People now know they can dream. Dreams can come true. They're with a family, a belonging. So what do you do with a family? You try to get more happiness, more
Yes.
activity, more joy. The best part about growing up was the dinner table, right? I mean, if you get everybody around the dinner table who's in the proper mode of what Leslie was saying about respectful and thoughtful and open, then it's the best place because everybody tells you about their day, right? What'd you do today? I went to school. What happened? Went to work. What happened? what are you doing tomorrow? And everybody's like learning from each other, because now tomorrow they know whether studying for a test, leave them alone, or something's important, and I think that's where we need to grow to, is getting to work together.
Yeah, yeah. Look at Kinga has, excuse me, friend.
Sure.
Kinga has an interesting point here. If you see it, acceptance is becoming a problem lately, right? This is why I keep coming back. You promote belonging on a deeper level, and that, absolutely right, right? We each have our own. I don't know. Even occasionally there's somebody who says something that doesn't really resonate with me, but it's always respectful, right? And to Kinga's point, there aren't many places like this. Now, I've told this story before where I was in a group and and had the expectations, and that's one of the things that Donald, without saying it, whether you did or not in the beginning, you set out the expectations, right? And then you led being those expectations. So as a leader, it was easy for us to follow you because you walked the walk. But you can't be responsible for everybody who comes into the group. And in this other group I was in, which I looked for a very long time and really love those people like I love you, somebody did something nasty. And when you're in that state of belonging and trust, you get blindsided, right? So it took me a little while to realize that it wasn't me, it was what was going on in their world. But nonetheless, when you're completely trusting and belonging, you don't expect someone to say something unkind. So even in that situation, it's a learning experience to say, oh, well, wait a second, what's wrong with them today? There's something going on in their world that it never was really about me. Let's see. Oh, I was looking to see if Kelle came on. She didn't. So yeah, that I kind of, to Kinga's point, even if something does happen, such as in my video last week where someone dropped all their information, I just ignored it because I figured eventually he'll see that no one else did this, right? So that'll take care of that. So you really do, you create a space for belonging. And I will tell you, people, there aren't many old folks like us on LinkedIn, but we are the sages. We're the ones that are, that we've made it this far and we've learned. And so it's with deep respect that I'm grateful to Dawn and all of you for investing your time with me and with Donald, because time is consumable. You'll never get it back. So the trade for it has to be belonging and safety to get the most out of it. Don't you think, Don? I think
so. Well, I think that, to have trust is vital, to have communication. And if you have communication, everybody should have a voice and should be heard. So the key is not only building it, but curating it, right? Because the easiest thing you can do here is hit a button and someone's gone. Hit another button, they're blocked forever on Restream. So if anybody does anything, everybody would look at the leader or each other in what's going to happen now, because that's another opportunity to see if this is real, right? Everybody can talk until something happens, and then everybody's going to respond to it. And as a leader, you want to model a little bit of courage, a little bit of bravery, and be the advocate and do it comfortably. So Paul has a pretty long comment here. Sometimes I have to take a step back in conversations, and I remind myself that everything in life is relative. Giving people grace has been probably the most transformational skill I've learned. You don't have to attend the argument. Kelly Clarkson. Well, to that point, what I'm finding, especially with this show, is slower is better than faster. Comfortable is better than uncomfortable. Not being impulsive or pushy or any of that stuff doesn't sell well. And if you want to encourage communication, you've got to be open to it, accessible to it, And every word me and Leslie say is a word you're not saying, in a sense, right? So we don't, and you're many and we're few, so you got a lot of voices, and our voice will be heard the way we respond to your voice. So we still get known, but in response to something instead of anticipation to something. So, that's my comment. Whether it applied to your comment, Paul, I don't know, but it allowed me to share a thought. Acceptance is becoming a problem lately. That is why I keep coming back here. You promote, okay, we talked about that.
While you're finding the next one, I wanted to say something about
Okay.
what
Okay.
Paul did, Kelly Clarkson's thing, because we just did this one. That's cool. That's the law of relativity. Each one of us is different. What Kelly Clarkson is pointing to, and anything that we say that you've heard before in a different way, that's a good thing because it resonates with you, and you will add that to your bank of knowledge. So Kelly Clarkson is referring to the law of relativity. We're very busy comparing ourselves to everybody else, but there is no comparison if it's relative. If you only have like one bottle, I'm holding one mouse in my hand. How big or small? What's the size of this mouse? It has no value. But allow me, since I've been having trouble with mice lately and not the critters, when I bring in this one, you can see that the blue one is smaller. So relative to this one, this is smaller and this is now bigger. Well, look at us as individuals. There are no two mice exactly the same size. So why do we, and it's so interesting, this inquiry, why do we feel compelled to compare ourselves to the Joneses, to this person, to this many followers, to this many connections, to this much money? Why?
Well, I think because people create distractions for themselves, and they don't get to know themselves as well. So they're focused on competition, on who's got what, when did they get it, and their whole life becomes an obsession with everybody else's. And meanwhile, the score takes care of itself if you play the game right, and I think people should focus on themselves because they're wasting time distracting themselves and feeling bad. You wouldn't keep comparing if you already won.
Yes, actually, and this brings up, I did a training on this Thursday, is Covey's first, what is it, the 7 habits of highly effective people, or highly effective people, not successful. And the first one is be proactive, which Don is always talking about. So here's the thing, he has a model. There's a circle of influence and a circle of concern. Your circle of influence is what you're thinking, who you vote for, what you read, what you have to say, right? That is all stuff that you can control. The circles are the same size. They're like donuts, though. So most of us fill this circle of concern over which I have no control about what's going on in politics, Kim Kardashian, all that stuff. It grows and it shrinks your circle of influence. So to Don's point, bringing in Stephen Covey also to this conversation, thank you, Mr. Covey or Dr. Covey, that you only have so much. What are you filling your conscious mind with? Other people's business or things that you can control, which is what you think about and the actions you take. There we go. And look who's here, Andrea.
Yeah, Andrea's always here, even when she's not here. Well, I think a lot, and what I think about what you said is really a matter of having something that you're involved in that's big enough that distractions won't distract you, right? If you got a mission, if you got a sense of urgency, if you just need to be able to do what you need to do every day, you're forced to turn those away. And then it creates a model for how you go to work without distraction. So, you've got a competitive advantage if you're not spending all your day thinking about what someone did to you, what someone will do to you. You know, it's all about other people, but the wrong way. If you take better care of yourself and then use your better self to project that to the people around you versus the victim versus the sadness, you know, that doesn't sell. It might be real, but it's only as real as you allow it to be based on what you choose to do and think and who do you choose to be around. So I think belonging answers those questions of self-doubt, of self-punishment for things you might or might not have done, for not being your best friend. I mean, so I think you got to belong to yourself first, right? And you got
And
to.
that's the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you didn't belong to yourself day one. I mean, maybe we did based on what we knew at the time. When I was 21, I thought I knew everything. As I got older, I realized I didn't know diddly squat, right? It's like with my children. And I bet some of the audience has this experience. You know, divorce rates are so high, and there's a break in belonging in the family. And I'd like to go back to the 50s when we all sat and had dinner together. My kids graduated in 91 and 94. And a few years, and all their classmates had one parent. Like, they were all divorced except us and maybe a few people. And a few years later, my children came to me and they said, Mama, you know, we just realized that you and Daddy were there for us through everything in high school. And none of our friends had that same support system, right? So there's the family with 50% of divorces of all marriages and divorce, and 75% for second and third marriages. And then go back to 1970s when everybody had a two parent family making over $100,000 a year, and they all bought these big houses. Then the divorces came, they couldn't make the payments. Then you had your latchkey children who pretty well raised themselves on their own. And the family unit is not like when you and I grew up, where everybody came to the table, we ate what mother fixed, right? And we didn't talk ugly. And when I came back from college, when I used a few choice curse words, I was at San Francisco State, I was asked to leave the table, right? Because that wasn't the expectation, nor was that the parameter.
Okay, well, nothing like bringing, you know, experience and context based on time frame, and that speaks to relativity. And you know, it is whatever it is, and it's whatever you want to make it for, as long as you want to make it after that. You know, so you know, Paul says, do you believe that this buzzword people use of toxicity is to absolve accountability? Well, it may be toxic, but what are you focusing on? What takes away from you, right? One should acknowledge what's in front of them, but how long you spend on it, what you plan to do about it. I just find life redirects you based on the signals it gives you.
Well, and then this piece here, I know there's exceptions, yet people say they knew they should have removed themselves. That's fear. Fear of criticism. There are 6 basic fears, but this one and poverty are the 2 gangbusters. So fear of criticism shows up like, well, what if I do it wrong? What will people think? Again, you know, comparing ourselves that we ought to be some other way. So we hold ourselves back and we play small. It's safer. That's why the belonging and the trust in the community is a hotbed, right? It's fertile ground for us to make inroads in expressing ourselves more and stepping a little bit out of our comfort zone. Don't you think it's okay, Dawn, that we take 1 or 2 steps at a time? I know that you want people to jump into action, and 2 steps is action in some instances for me.
Yeah, well, here's an interesting nuance to what you said.
Always interesting with you.
Well, I try. I really do
No,
try.
you do. You don't try. You do.
Well, that's what I try to do. Is do. So I even forgot my nuance right now,
Oh,
but
shoot,
okay,
I'm
well,
sorry.
I'll figure it out in about a second.
Right,
So
right.
so anyways, what I have to say about that,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. It was the most incredible thought I ever had.
I'm sure. I'm taking medicine so that I don't forget my thoughts. Here's a good thing about forgetting, and you'll remember this, and everybody in the audience. Okay, I do this. I started doing this 10 years ago. So when I start pontificating, like we're doing now,
Oh yeah.
right? Okay, so I know there is always one or two people, or there is always one or two people in the audience who are on my wavelength, like they're keeping up with me. So before I begin, I call myself out. Listen, as I go on with this, if I forget where I am, who would be willing to remind me? And that makes those people who volunteer to do that, boy, they're listening keenly. They just can't wait to come in. So even if you forget, and another trick that I learned from a very famous multi-million dollar personal development speaker. So you have what you're going to say in a piece of paper in your back pocket or on the podium. When you forget where you are, you say something like, wait just a second, I've got something special to share with you. When you turn around and you look at it, you know where you are now, and you come back and say, I'm going to save that for later. Let's continue. So those are, do you see what I just did? That's a way so that the audience doesn't know you forgot, right? So you're kind of, it's smooth. Anybody get that? I hope so.
Okay.
You can do that too, Donald. You can do that too.
No, I lost my next thought.
Oh, shit.
Anyway, I'm just kidding. Uh, so anyways, let's get some names here. I'm looking
Okay.
for some bigger comments. Paul's always a good favorite for that. I respectfully disagree, King is my response to look out for myself. It's nice to respectfully disagree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you know what I found? Whatever everybody said, it's your turn to say what you need to say, and you don't have to preface anything in order to say it, but to add to it. And you
But
know,
I like that. I like that.
why did
Because you can't be responsible for how other people are going to react. Like if Kinga wasn't as elevated and aware, and this group is, right, likely she would not be hurt by that. But there are people who will take that the wrong way. So I support that. The putting in respectfully, I respectfully disagree. Don't you?
Yeah, no, I think so. But at the same time, if you have to preface it, maybe you don't even have to say it. I mean, here's the point. Anytime someone says something and then says "but," you can erase everything before the "but."
Yes.
Right? I think you're marvelous, but
Use and yet, and that will not negate the front end of the
well,
sentence.
yeah, that shows you how sincere and authentic you are because the first one's a door opener, the second one's the truth. And,
You're shutting the door if you say but on the
yeah, and
first.
you're judging, So if you
Yes.
take your judgment hat off
Yes.
and use what everybody said either to provoke a new thought, a different thought, or even an adverse thought,
Mhm.
then you can share that thought without having the competition or the comparison. So what it really says, and that's what belonging is where does the word belong? Belonging, right? And when do you use it? How do you use it? Why do you use it? And are you using too many words the wrong way, using the wrong words, or talking too much? Either way, whenever you're interacting, someone's got the microphone. What do you do every time you get the microphone to make that person who you're talking to want to talk to you more, get to learn more? Because the idea is to get people to know you for who you think your best you is. And then it comes down to what do you do with your best you then with other people? And, to your point, I finally thought about it. There's
I,
one thing where there's a high degree of call to action, but relatively speaking, it doesn't create the action.
no.
Now, when the action matches the call to action, that's when you have completeness. I mean, if a captain says, let's march, and no one does it, no one's marching, right? So you can yell for it, but people got to fall in line and follow it. So sometimes you just got to keep repeating the impactful action you want people to take,
Absolutely.
and so if it's loud, it's not loud enough if no one listened to it and did anything with it. Assuming it's respectful, it's for the common good, and if you're really taking care and looking after people, you want them to know when their shoelaces are untied, right? You want them to know that they didn't have to fall down and someone knew, right? If you just told me, I would have tied my shoes and not tripped. I mean, so it's avoiding what typically happens and creating what most people don't anticipate. Cindy has a story. I married my husband when I was 18, was divorced after 19 years, and we got back together, married again 5 years later. Now we've been together 29 years total. Well, sometimes you got to go away to come back.
You had to learn. You had some learning to do. I'd love to be a fly on the wall on those 5 years, Cynthia. I bet there was lots of fun for both of you.
You don't know that.
I don't know that, but it could be.
It could have been the worst time, and now they got together,
Oh.
and it's all nothing but happiness and birthday cakes every day. Ann Bambola's here. Happy Saturday, family. Happy Saturday. I mean, you got it, Ann Bambola. Family is everything, and that's where you want to belong, is where you started with who you have, because everybody's precious. Everybody has a history with you, whether they have the same perspective, whether they get along as well as other people, but that's what makes them different. And once you know who people are and they prove themselves to be that all the time, it's your fault if you keep getting surprised. Accept people for who they are, where they are, and how they are, and don't make it worse for them.
Yes, and conceptually, this is intellectually, that is absolutely accurate. And yet the doing of it is not quite so easy, because each one of us different. First of all, our perspective changes with every new thing we learn. So while we believe we're right from our point of view, and we are, arguing to be right is pointless, because every new bit of information changes your view. So imagine a world where we didn't want to be right or wrong, but as Covey says, we want a win-win, and not a compromise, but a better solution. Boy, I'm all over the place today.
Yeah, you sure are. And some of it's really, really good. And a lot of it's really, really better than good. So
I'm glad you quantified that.
you're expecting something else. And that's the key, is don't expect something, anticipate the best of something.
Always look for the greatness. Yeah, one of the mantras in my program, there are 7, and they're actually beliefs that we create over 12 weeks, repeating them out loud, right? And the last one is, I'm the mirror of your greatness. You're the mirror of mine. The more I find greatness in you, the more my own grows. And I created that mantra probably in 1997. And I've stuck with it ever since. And that's exactly to your point. If you look for the greatness in others, it means you have to have it, because we're reflections of each other. So if you can't see the greatness in someone else, and you're always judging and looking for something wrong, you can't do both. You can't judge and look for the greatness at the same time. Looking for the greatness is conscious. Judging is subconscious. So that's enough of that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Maybe judging or judgment should have been the word today. Is it at a certain point, you just know what you know, and you see what you know to be what you know, right? And there is no more judgment. It's just the knowledge, right? So I look at something, I know what it is. I don't have to judge it anymore. It is what it is. And how long you spend time pondering something is key. So like I say, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how fast you get up. And getting up fast is so important than getting stuck in something you never wanted to be part of to begin with. And now all of a sudden you're getting into it because you can, because it's intriguing. It's a mystery. And what it is taking you off course, putting you on a journey you had never planned for. But let's get back to this. Andrea is always good for a comment. As kids, we're not supposed to talk or even mention an observation. I'm glad my kids are brought up in a different way now. It is for us to recognize, forget about the past, and do it better. Well, I grew up in an earlier time too, when kids were meant to be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. And you didn't have the same rights of speech as everyone else, and older people were highly respected, and they, and respect went kind of down from there. So the oldest people were the people that got the most, and youngest people were meant for entertainment or just adding value instead of taking apart. Okay. Here's, where were we? Okay.
They're all good.
Yeah.
You just did that one.
Okay, here's one. I just look at how deep these are. The more I express myself within these comfort zones with like-minded individuals, the more my confidence builds and put myself out there unforgivably, no matter the audience. And I think Nicole makes an excellent point, because what is required to benefit from this group and this show is just sharing what you're thinking. If you don't got to climb all the hurdles of, how many credentials, how much of this, what were you, what are you, who cares about that? That's your deal.
She's becoming, actually, what she's talking about is becoming authentic, her authentic self. That is to be able to be yourself wherever you are, not worry about what other people think, like to just be who you are. And this takes work, and it takes time, not hard work. It takes practice, because we're bombarded with thousands of ideas every day and very few get in.
Yeah, but that's the key. Too many people build authentic around style, around all these superficial things. So if all you need to do is get a thought, share that thought when you get it. That's as authentic as you're going to be, because the more you distill it, the more you start to shape it, So connection request, cancel that. Yeah, so I think that's, Nicole makes up a great point, is when you're comfortable, okay, that's where you should be.
Well, and here's the other thing. So you've pointed this out to me. And so for those of you who know me, you really know who I am. This is me. Like, because I'm authentic and I'm a double Sagittarius, and I love to hypothesize and philosophize. Sometimes I talk too much. So I have to be very careful in these rooms, particularly audio rooms, that I don't get up there and just spill. And I've seen this where people don't give someone else a chance to talk because they're so into their authenticity. But I am totally with you. Authenticity has nothing to do with style. It has nothing to do with which hat you're wearing. It has to do, can you be your authentic self at church, in classroom, in public, in business, in community? Are you always you? Or do you slightly modify the things you say and the way you're being based on the context? Now, there is some of that that's important, right? So, you do want to match the context, but the point is, can you really say the same thing in all groups? Or would you modify it in one group or another? And authenticity is kind of where I am, but it took my whole life to get to the point where, you know what, at my age, screw it. But I am cognizant, and I have a friend in Donald who says, Leslie, don't talk too much, stop teaching, right? So that's why we joke about it. But that's one of my weaknesses, if you will. I don't think it's a weakness. He has a concern that I'll bore everybody and that they're leaving and coming back and they'll miss stuff.
No, but here's the point. And it's a great thing you brought it up, because the dynamics of the show keep changing.
Mm.
And when you don't have comments or audience, you're forced to carry the show or be the show. As the audience increases, it's almost like having a bigger banquet hall. Right now, there's more need to make sure everybody gets served. And here's the thing is if you get known by how you serve and not
Mm.
how you serve yourself, outside of this show is where the belonging is.
Mm.
Too many people try to get everything done to all these people at one time. It's not
Mm.
enough time. It doesn't fit. Again, like belonging. But afterwards, if you really felt this was a great opportunity today,
Mhm.
someone spent 5 minutes reflecting on, well, what made it so great? Well, I loved Paul's comment. Well, have you had a conversation with Paul yet?
Mhm.
Have you tried to get a Zoom? Have you tried to be on someone else's show? And if you haven't, why don't you have that as a to-do list? What other things turned you on today? Made you feel better? Made you do something? Share that in a comment. I mean, for circulation to flow, everybody's got to open their doors and their windows and not just keep receiving and piling it up like it's surplus, versus, hey, just got it, send it along. You just keep uh, having a syndication of things. So that's what I would suggest people do. Again, take action.
And
Now,
it's the law of reciprocity too, because to your point, gathering all this information and not sharing it with someone who doesn't know as much as you. I mean, think about this. There are people who don't know what you know in your industry that you could be helping. And the things that you learn here, if it's one nugget or two nuggets, right, it's going to make you better able to serve. I think what I heard from you, Donald, is it's either ego centered or heart centered. Heart centered serves others, ego centered is more focused on themselves. You can't be both at the same time. You're going to be somewhat ego centered sometime, but which has the most weight? Do people know you as a heart centered servant that you give without expecting something in return? Or do they know you as egocentric, where you're going to take, and not find a way to give back? Now, that doesn't, we don't know when people leave here. It could be someone at a gas station that you're speaking with and you share it there. So it's not to say that you're not giving back, but there's a flow and the law of reciprocity and the law of cause and effect. You're going to get back what you give, right? And so what you're getting here, you want to give back to people who don't know as much as you. Right?
yeah, and the key is you want to evolve also.
Absolutely.
Right? And how are you going to evolve unless you don't change and redirect some of your thoughts, actions, and get more done in less time, okay, with less thought? And the reason I say with less thought is if the true thought came to you, use that. If you take that thought and start playing with it, you got 20, 30 minutes into it, then you're getting into punctuation, then you're getting into the look, and then all of a sudden the whole thought got masqueraded by something that you're adding polite to and maybe some sales stuff to it. If you want to be authentic, get pure, you know, take off all the makeup, be natural. I mean, that's what being authentic is. And allow people to hear and see you through your message, not through you. The people who talk all about themselves have two issues, and I'll leave it at two. One,
Please, only two issues.
yeah, they're insecure about themselves, so they're always trying to make themselves more than people even want from them.
Yeah.
And the second thing is they're just not considerate towards what other people are saying. And here's one element, because I've been doing this show 300 days, 400 days, I don't even know what it is. It's every day. And I've learned over time. And when you do that much, the last thing you're looking to do is talk more, because you're going to have plenty of time to talk and everybody's heard you so many times. But the key is if you say something important, and you don't let someone work with that, and then you say something else important, and now you got three important things. Two of them are going to get lost. One doesn't know where it is. So if you know the hour is always going to be the hour, and everybody's going to have a portion or half of the time, it's the key is how much can you say to how many people. So it's like in this case, talking less to more and getting everybody in is better than talking more to less. And where the rubber meets the road, if someone really likes what you're saying, likes how you're saying it, then after the show is when you get that hour conversation. That's when
Mm.
you answer questions. So it's a two-step process.
Mhm.
Know yourself as a servant here, someone who's an advocate for everybody, not yourself. And if that's all you can do is give all you can do to everybody. And if that's not enough, anything else would have been less than enough too. Then it's repetition. Then it's consistency. And then it's ultimately getting the feedback to say they didn't want to hear this. They wanted to hear that. When people are making comments, sometimes it's not even a comment to you, but it's a comment saying, here's what I'd like to see, or here's what I love hearing. So if you dissect what everybody said and you said, well, 7 people who are really entrenched in this conversation created these meaty comments, maybe I can learn from them, even if it doesn't even apply to me. So Leslie, Boz is here. Boz is going to be showing up this week with Kelle, a great guy. He was on the show the other day. Paul, down so true. I learned that people show you who they truly are immediately. Many people choose to look at things for what they want them to be versus what they are. And that's so important because in my life and experiences, so many people underestimated me before they got a chance to know me. They came in matching me up with whatever was in their mind or whoever they thought I was. And they came in at a disadvantage because I didn't go in like that.
Mhm.
When everybody talks and nobody listens, you don't learn anything.
One of the things that I do in my workshops, and I do this also on lives very often, to your point about the things that I may learn, right? There's a lot of really meaty comments here. I will take quick notes. And in my workshops, at the beginning, I will say, okay, how many golden nuggets are you listening for today? So you set the intention that I'm going to get like light bulb moments. I'm going to get 5, I'm going to get 10. Some people are very conservative. Some people, will go 15 or 20 in an hour, right? It's interesting to see who is very conservative, like with 2 or 3, and who is it that says they'll do 15. But it alerts you at your top of mind. So now you're listening for things that you love, that you want to consider, that you want to think about people the same way. And then it's always a surprise at the end that almost everybody exceeds their expectations and intentions because they were focused on getting what resonated with them.
Yeah, for sure. Paul makes a great point. I'm curious on your thoughts about supporting people. Wouldn't you agree that the ultimate sign of true confidence, you are so confident in who you are and what you're worth, is that you get to spotlight others and listen instead of speaking? Well, I want to distinguish between supporting people just altruistically
Mhm.
or as an investment. You only have so much time, and you're going to end up mentoring people, whether it's a defined mentorship or an implied. And
Mhm.
you got to decide where can your time and effort pay off the most with someone most deserving. And so if someone needs help, that doesn't mean I'm the person who can help them or want to help them,
That's
right?
right.
You may not get the same benefit as you're giving, but you need a benefit for giving it, which could be appreciation, could be gratitude. It's non-materialistic. But if someone disrespects you and then expects something from you, I mean, there's a double minus there. And to me, there's so many times in my life I waited longer than I should have,
Mm.
than shorter, right? And if I did make a mistake, it was pretty much on the bubble anyway. So, I always, whenever I did something, it's like I should have done this 2 months ago when I said I should have done it, because you recount when the timelines were that you set your limit. And then when the limit came, you decide, maybe I'll extend it. Maybe. And every time I said, it wasn't maybe, it's just you didn't want to get to it. It wasn't comfortable. But once it's over, it's so refreshing. So what I learned from it, the sooner the better. When I was doing turnarounds, I had to go in and gut companies and make them live again. Is getting rid of so many people in such a short period of time and hearing their stories, and it broke your heart because it was true. But, you felt like, hey, sometimes you got to give up a leg to save the body, right? And it was the lifeboat that people had to focus on, not the one that was sinking. So I think when you dedicate yourself to things of value, of people of value, and that's why if you have 5 heroes, I mean, how many people are buying somebody else's book, right? Than the book that people are writing in front of you. Like Kofi, Nicole's got a book. Why don't people look at that book? Because that's your belonging family.
Right? I have 8 books.
Yeah, and people should get to know you and go to your profile and see them.
One thing I wanted to share with you, though, about Paul, because I didn't want this to get off the screen. I don't think it's a sign of true confidence. I think it's evolving authenticity. Confidence is a muscle and grows in direct proportion to its use. So you never reach a pinnacle of true confidence where it's static. It's always fluctuating. And as you achieve more, your confidence grows, right? And then it can shrink down a little bit. So for me, it's more on the way to being your authentic self, where you can be heart-centered and not expect. The other thing is do not expect something in return. Here's the next step. Like Don, you were saying that they should appreciate and be grateful. And I'm not talking about someone who's disrespectful. I don't need you to appreciate me. And I'll tell you why. It's already on its way to me through other people and opportunities. So no biggie if you don't, and most everybody does, right? That's what we do. But I don't have to have it right now because I already know that with all the seeds I've planted and all the giving I've done for years, I am barraged with everyday miracles. People that show up, right? They go, oh my God, this is what I want to talk to you about as a result of who I've been being. So yes, it's nice to be acknowledged and respected, but it's not a deal breaker for me, right? So there.
Yeah, and I think everything is everything, which says very little. But I think the true value of what we're discussing today is change is dynamic. You're never going to be 100%. You never should expect to be 100%. And you make mistakes. You should be responsible and accountable and move on. That's all it is the sooner, because you'll learn from something is a mistake versus something you disguise as a win, or a benefit. So at the end of the day, here Boz has a good comment. Your identity is constructed of your beliefs. Change your belief, you change your life. But
100%, and that is what I do, is teach people to create a new belief that outweighs the old one. And it is a practice, and it is not a bunch of tools thrown together. It's actually a process. People that get really deep in their study, such as Don, like he didn't study to be a good business owner. He evolved into one through desire and necessity, right? And so your beliefs are, your results will match your beliefs. So if you don't believe you can do it, you won't do it. So then the logical solution is, how do I create a new belief? And it takes time, because your old beliefs, hell, you've been saying these things for decades. I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. Go ahead.
Well, I think too, and not to interrupt, is
yes, it's okay.
Sometimes, well, I still do it, so I just
said, me too.
Yeah. but here's the thing. Sometimes you get the right team, you get the right combination, and you're not always in search mode. You're not always now you're into let's do this.
That's right.
And the other thing about belonging, if you belong to many different families during your day, you get out of one family into another. So like I go to the park a lot. That's kind of like a family. I see a lot of the same people, see a lot of the same dogs.
Do you feed the pigeons?
No, but
Okay.
I see a lot. Well, I had birds that you can't believe around here. So, anyways, by switching and getting back to something, it's only when you stay too long, dig deeper than you should, you're fatigued, and you keep going that extra mile. When you should have went to the park, when you should have went to a nice restaurant, when you should have called a relative, when you should have done this, because that now gives you balance in when you come back to it, because sometimes you're so pushed by the energy, by the information, that you just think if you do more of it, you'll get better, versus, hey, enough's enough. Or when something gets to you that typically wouldn't get to you, you know it's you now, right? Because the typical part is not there. And the other thing is, how do you feel? How do you want to feel? Nicole says win-win. Here's Paul. I was having a conversation with John Gordon about communication. I said the difference between good, great communicators is knowing when to talk. Well, that's so true. And here's what I think. If you can be the better communicator without being competitive, you're going to elicit what you want to hear from the person. What they say is response to what they feel and what they see and what they hear from you. You know yourself, is there's things that will trigger people. I mean, especially family. If you get into somebody with something, how it always ends and what to expect. And then you got to kick yourself later to say, why did I even start that thing? Or why didn't I just let it go? Why did I keep going beyond the point where now I'm feeling bad about what I said or did? When I used to see family in Detroit, I go there every year, and I go to Florida every year to see family. And I knew you had to visit an uncle, an aunt, a cousin. I mean, just the schedule was pretty much set, right? Your aunt's waiting for you. We're going to have a lunch here, blah, 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 blah. And I knew they're not going to see me for another year. And I'm only going to say 10 or 12 things that might have any value. So what am I going to leave the package with until next year? How your potato salad doesn't taste good today. How it took me so long to get here, and now I got to rush. I mean, so you ask yourself, who are you talking to? Who are you talking for? And what do people want to remember you by? And what do you want to remember them by? And it's always like, hey, we're here for a little time. Let's enjoy the meal. I mean, you redirect things. Let's enjoy the meal. What's going on? How's everybody doing? Versus, what happened to this? What happened to that? So it's actually past the hour. Here's one. When I look in the mirror now, I love what I see. Now when I look at others, I see what I love. It took me time to get there, but I have, and I'm so grateful. And Nicole, this demonstrates what a wonderful author you are.
You're seeing yourself is what you're actually doing. When you look at others, when you feel this way, you're seeing the qualities in yourself. We're a reflection. So if we're looking for bad in others, it's something we don't like about ourselves. If we judge others, right, finger points to them and 3 back at us. So if you can see in others what you love, it has to be a reflection of the love you have. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it. You'd be seeing something else. So it's a different kind of conversation, but boy, has this been interesting today. I mean, look at the length of these. I'm going to have a good time going back and talking to everybody about this.
Oh, for sure. And I think, too, what Leslie's saying is when you see yourself as beautiful and wonderful and belonging to so much, and so many people belong to you, then you want to show more of that.
Mm-hmm.
That gets you out of your cell. You say, hey, I'm looking better than I ever did, feeling better. I want to get out there. I want people to see it, because it took me a long time. It took me a lot of time and trouble. You know what? You could be 10 feet lost and 10 miles lost, and you're just as lost until you're found, right? And some people are so close to being found, but they still feel lost until they are, but once they are, well, this is interesting. Cindy says the banter between you two is hilarious. Yeah, it's like Laurel and Hardy sometimes.
No, it's like two old married couple. It's an old married couple is what it is.
Yeah, we got to watch that. We got to. Sharing is caring. When Wendy says, you're so right. Wendy's a lovely lady. Get to know her, because if nothing more, everybody at least for their comments today. And no one knows who's going to read them. What, just to say sharing is caring. It's not selling a book. It's not promoting Wendy. What it is, allowing her to share her thoughts, her feelings with people who elicit it. Because if we don't get feedback, we're living with tunnel vision, and once we get feedback, it doesn't change something, but it makes you question maybe a little why. That's something new, and that's what you want, is something new. That's what makes life
and that's what changes your perspective, right? That something new has the ability to slightly change your view. It's like if we were all together in the same room right now, all of us, wouldn't that be great? And I was holding a huge diamond, right, with many facets, and we're in a circle around it. And I asked everybody to look at the room through the prism. The room does not change, but every single viewpoint is different and accurate.
Well, at least for the moment and the time, it's conveyed. Nathalie, I hope I didn't mess that up too much. I recently missed 2 Zoom call appointments, not consecutive, with someone I respect and like. I felt really bad. The person shared she is hurt, will not connect anymore. Things happen. And, I do things too. And, I missed something. I forgot something. And people forget that. And, the first time I'm cool. It happens. It could happen to me. But the question is, how long did it take you to figure that out?
That's the amount of time between my question would be is, did you immediately reach out to her and take responsibility and apologize or not? That would be a big factor for me.
Yeah, that would. And how long did it take? Because exactly. I had a gentleman who had a Zoom call, and he was in Paris actually. And it was like 11 o'clock my time. And I finally got a text from him at 6 o'clock. And it said, sorry, I couldn't make it. The metro train was stuck and he couldn't get home, right? And I'm thought to myself, yeah, but your phone worked, right? You didn't want to make the Zoom call on a train, but okay, one. Second time it happened, again, it was like a day later. And the third time, by the second time, I'm already kind of lukewarm. The third time, it's like, I don't even care, because someone should know, hey, I stood this person up twice. And if I can at least get in front of it to say when it happened, why it happened. And sometimes, people have said, in my life and I'm sure other lives have rejected you because something you didn't do right or something you were supposed to do. And if you feel bad about it, and you do know they're right, because that's how you would feel if someone did that to you, then really the response is, I fully understand, and I don't blame you. And I would do the same thing you're doing, even though I want you to know. But then again, if you were bogus for 3 times and you didn't have, why even get into it? You're wasting more time. So let's not go into that. Let's go into what Andrea says. I would not show myself differently in other groups. I'm behind it like you, Leslie. If I do not fit in and it is a family gathering, I just go quiet and listen, back to the intro for the rest. If I have something to say, I always will. Because, I think Andrea is so wise in that regard. If you know what the best outcome for everybody is, that's the role you should play, right? If your role is going to dinner with family is to make it as festive, as happy, as comfortable for everybody, then no one knows.
Who was the lady that said that she missed 2 Zoom calls because we're past that? What was her name?
This is Nathalie.
Okay, well, I want to say something about that. I don't know why she wouldn't forgive you, but she probably did the right thing. and I'll
Well,
tell you.
let me finish her question because no
Okay,
one can see the whole thing. I
sure.
recently missed 2 Zoom call appointments, not with someone I respect and like. I felt really bad. The person shared she is hurt and will not connect anymore. I sent a message, apologize, also telling the person I respect her decision. I'm not sorry she feels this way, just like we had just said. Time
Mhm.
management is a weakness of mine. When I set up my Google Calendar this morning, I'm a very forgiving person, so I would have said, it's okay, no worries. How can I process this situation? Well, it happens to me. I mean, especially when you're doing 7 of these and you got 20 guest hosts and different topics and you're responding to stuff.
Can I
It's,
address that? Can I address that for her?
yeah, one last thing though. What I do is I have a discipline of looking at my calendar more often during the day because
Mm.
we'll look at it the night before, say I got an 8 o'clock with this and 11 o'clock. Maybe even look at the morning, but you find out the 11 was really 10:30 or the 11 was 11:30. And sometimes you're having a Zoom a half hour before and you're wondering how come everybody's late when you were early, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But you got to get like you got to fall down a couple times to say if you really feel bad about it and it's genuinely bad, then set up a little system that makes you more aware and follow it, and that might
Mhm.
help. Well, Leslie, to your point.
So, Donald, what you did was you set a parameter. 2 was it, you're done. And Nathalie, to the person, I don't necessarily regard the reason why she was hurt, although she was hurt and she has the right to be hurt. But what happens is when you have a client or someone who doesn't show up, they take up your appointment time. And there's a law called the law of sacrifice. And what has happened is, Nathalie, that woman gave up something or someone of lesser value. And the same thing with Don to make room for something of greater value. So, that's why it's so important. If you miss a call, that's being human, that you do something about it instantly and do something like Donald said. Find someone to help you. I have a double alarm system. Ping me and I'll tell you how I use it so that I don't miss things, so that I get out the door with always arriving early. There's lots of tips like that. But I admire that person, not necessarily for being hurt. I guess I get it. But for her, you crossed the boundary. So there's a lesson there for you. And for Donald, it freed up your time for someone who was able to make it and didn't break. I mean, you have to have boundaries. I've had people, break appointments or not show up. I'm done because that space is no longer available to someone who would be there. It's
Yeah,
always
and here's the other thing that comes to mind. A lot of times you change your life for your schedule,
no.
right? So in other words, well, I'm saying is if you got a 3:30 appointment,
Mhm.
that meant you can't do something else during that time. It
That's right.
means you have to be prepared for that time. So 3:30 is more like 3:15 minimum.
Yes.
And then follow up. So you got an hour, and when someone doesn't show up, no show, no call, it's like, well, I just missed something I was going to go to, right? But I thought it was. I mean, that's what happens. So when people aren't responsive, right? If it skipped your mind, it probably didn't skip the other person's mind, and that's where, as soon as you find out, the sooner you should call and tell somebody,
Exactly.
right? And that way, it's like, oh yeah, it was 10 minutes ago. And some people say, I skipped my mind. I thought it was a half hour. Can you still talk now? Sometimes you can get on a call, sometimes you can't. But at the end of the day, that's why it's also important to take the responsibility is why do I set appointments with these type of people who keep not showing up? And maybe there's a method to the madness that says, unless I know this person a little bit well, because I do have people who schedule Zoom calls from out of the blue
And
because
don't show.
I have my link there if you want to do a Zoom right
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
profile.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people I never knew them. I know one thing, if they don't have a picture on their profile, there's no call going to take place. If they have 3 connections, it's never going to happen.
You
So
have to set boundaries. And you know, in my work, and it took me a whole lifetime to do this too, was that I have a program that I had to create, determine when I will have clients, when I will work on administration. I'm off on Wednesdays. If I want to do something on a Wednesday, if Donald says I can choose that. But you know, right? And I meet people in the afternoon. I will rarely change that. If you want to get with me, there's enough openings, right, that you can find a time. And if you can't, of course, we'll find one together. But I don't go outside those boundaries. My calendar, and here's the other thing. When you get on my calendar, you're the high value. So I'm not changing it unless something of higher value comes up, such as an emergency that only I can handle. So you're giving them the respect of the value of your time, which you'll never get back, right? And then they don't acknowledge or behave as though they appreciate it or respect you, right? It could be that's what you're thinking or a person is thinking, true or not, it doesn't really matter. So set boundaries. Anything that goes on my calendar is high value. It doesn't change unless you ask for a change or there's an emergency. And I want to tell you, life is so much easier because it's based on what I want to do, when I want to work, and how much, not based on, well, Leslie, can you see me right now? Only if it's an emergency.
You know, I get it. And I think your Calendly reflects your boundaries, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, I cut off, I don't do any calls on Saturdays and Sundays. So it's just a show.
Good.
After 3:30, I don't do calls. Before 10:30 or 11, I don't do calls. So I only have a 4-hour window. But to Leslie's point, I hardly have a day where I have all 4 filled in. And since I have 5 days a week for the rest of my life, and again, if someone needs something, requires something, I'm open, but those are at least the beginning lines. Well, let's go back to Nicole. Well, here's Andrea. Let's be your authentic self and make sure. You know, the thing is, people, once they get where they want to be, they should just keep moving forward. You know, it's like there's a saying, start before you're ready and catch up. You know, because if you're always getting ready, you're never doing nothing. I know I'm pushing that point. Okay, sounds great. So with that, I know we went a little bit overboard today. We got so many comments we didn't get to. We tried. We'll do it better next time. Gosh, look at these comments. And Leslie's always good about answering.
I'll come back and answer them. And I will take the time this time to take like a dozen of the hot nuggets and post them under this video because there's choice information. And when we do that, when someone comes to watch it again or for the first time, they're also getting your nuggets. So they're seeing the comments of you. And that's why it's so important to comment, because it aids the person watching it who wasn't here. Right, Don?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, if it's good for you, it's good for people like you. And it shows you're thinking of people when something good comes to mind. And I think that's important. It's the belonging that's also lending itself to alignment with thought, with the people you're getting to know. And as you're getting to know people better, you should be able to serve them better, right? Because once you know what they like, then it's easy just to get it versus guess. Mike's here. Susanna's here. These people are just so wonderful. I mean,
Rita's here too. She came in.
Oh, where's Rita? Rita's here. You know, a lot of time there's a delay on these too. So the show could end and we can get 20 more comments. Need your boundaries to have a balanced life. Well, you know, every day is a reevaluation, a recalibration. You can adjust certain things either way based on what's happening, what isn't happening. And
but not a lot. Don't adjust.
You always have control is what I'm saying in whatever you're doing.
Yes.
And as long as you maintain that control, you've got flexibility. Lots of great nuggets in this show. Rita, our community of belonging, she came up with, with that saying, and it's so apropos, Nathalie, I'm just waiting to see now we'll put any of my nonsense comments on the screen. I just did. I tried to think of so many of you, and I know I fail so many times. But that's where I'm starting to lean towards the audience. Okay, I'll call you. I think that was one of your comments.
No,
and that was boundaries from Wendy. So anyways, with that said, I want to thank everybody. Come back tomorrow. Hopefully Kelle can make it, and we'll also have, I believe Harvey will be here with Kelle. Mm-hmm. And then Monday is Gretchen. And look forward to seeing you in about 23 hours. So have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again. Thank you, Leslie, for providing so much